Elias stepped off the worn path and into the heart of the forest, carrying nothing but a small pack on his back and a mind full of plans. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of wet earth and the lingering smoke of distant fires. He had come here to build something that belonged entirely to him. A home, a life, a place where he could be free from the endless noise and judgment of the world he had left behind. Each step he took on the soft ground made a small crunch, and with each step he felt a little closer to the life he imagined. Far above him, in the silvered branches of a tall alien tree, a pair of eyes watched. She was not human. Her skin shimmered in shades of pale blue and soft silver, catching the sunlight as if her very body held a secret glow. The alien mother had watched many seasons pass, alone. Her mate had been taken by the void years ago, and her people had long since moved on, leaving her in silence. Loneliness had settled deep inside her, filling her days and nights with a cold ache. She had almost stopped noticing life, almost stopped wishing for it. Almost, but not quite. Because when she saw Elias, something stirred in her chest, a faint, fragile spark of hope she thought had died with her family. Elias began his work at dawn. He knelt by the clearing, measuring the logs he had dragged from the forest edge. His hands were calloused, each scar a story, each mark a memory of a life that had not been easy. He tapped the first log gently into place, adjusting it until it fit just right. Sweat ran down his brow, but he did not complain. He worked with the kind of quiet patience that only comes from someone who has known struggle and chosen to face it anyway. The alien watched him from a distance, hidden behind thick ferns and bending branches. Her eyes traced his movements, taking in every careful action, every moment of effort. She could feel the strength in him, but it was not only his physical strength that caught her attention. It was his calm, steady spirit. In a world full of chaos and loss, this human built with hope, piece by piece, log by log, and she realized, with a pang she could not name, that she was drawn to it. As the day passed, Elias stacked logs and began shaping the frame of what would one day be his cabin. He hummed softly, a tune he did not even know he remembered. Birds returned to the trees, curious, flitting closer to watch the human at work. The alien mother stepped lightly closer, her presence careful and silent. She did not want him to see her yet. She was still learning the strange mix of fear and fascination that had awakened in her. She had survived alone for so long, but loneliness had left her unprepared for the tender ache of longing, the kind that comes not from need, but from seeing something beautiful and wishing to belong to it. By midday, Elias paused to rest. He wiped his hands on his pants and looked around, taking in the forest that would soon become his home. The alien mother held her breath, waiting to see if he would notice her, but he did not, and somehow that brought her both relief and sadness. Relief, because she could observe without being rejected. Sadness, because it reminded her that she was still apart from the world she longed to touch. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Elias stood and stretched. His body was tired, but his eyes shone with satisfaction. He had laid the foundation, the first logs of a home that would rise from nothing. The alien mother exhaled softly, a sound like wind through silver leaves. She had watched many humans in her long life, but never one who moved through the world with such quiet determination. She felt an ache in her chest, a longing for connection she had thought impossible. And in that moment, as the shadows grew long and the first stars peeked through the forest canopy, she made a decision. She would stay. She would watch him, learn him, and perhaps, if fate allowed, she would find a place beside him in the life he was building. For the first time in decades, hope stirred in her heart. A tiny, fragile hope, but hope nonetheless. The days passed slowly in the forest, each one stretching longer than the last. Elias rose with the sun, carrying his tools through the damp underbrush, and the alien mother followed silently from a distance, her footsteps unheard on the soft earth. She had given herself a name long ago, though no one called her by it anymore. Now she was simply the watcher, a hidden presence in the corner of his world. She observed everything, The careful way he measured each log, the way he examined the grain of the wood, the way he paused to listen to the birds' songs and the wind's whispers. It was strange to her, this human. He was small and fragile compared to the alien strength she had known in her mate, but he possessed a quiet power of a different kind. It was patience, persistence, and an almost sacred reverence for life. She noticed how he would sometimes crouch to untangle a bird from a branch or help a small animal find its way through the undergrowth. There was gentleness in him, a kindness she had thought she would never see again. She felt an ache deep in her chest, a longing she did not understand fully. For decades she had lived alone, wandering through the forests and plains of her adopted home, seeking nothing but survival. But now, watching this human work tirelessly day after day, she felt something new, a desire to be near him, a craving for connection, for warmth, for the simple comfort of shared life. Her hands itched to reach out, to help him, but caution and fear kept her hidden. Humans were fragile. What if she scared him? What if he rejected her? Elias continued to build, log by log, as if the forest itself demanded his effort. The alien mother found herself imagining what it would be like to touch the rough edges of the logs alongside him, to share in the satisfaction of a job well done. She imagined the warmth of fire between them on a cold night, the comfort of laughter bouncing off the walls of a cabin they had built together. These thoughts made her pulse quicken, a feeling she had not experienced in decades. It was terrifying and beautiful all at once. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with streaks of gold and crimson, Elias paused to catch his breath. He looked at the half-built cabin, proud of the progress he had made. The alien mother stayed just out of sight, hidden behind the thick trunk of an ancient tree. She wanted to speak, to tell him that he was not alone, but her voice caught in her throat. Words felt too small for the depth of her longing. Instead, she stayed, heart beating in rhythm with his movements, feeling an invisible connection form between them. She began to notice small habits in him, little things that made her smile without her realizing. The way he tapped his tools lightly when he thought no one was watching, the way he hummed a low tune when he was deep in thought, the way his eyes lit up when he spotted a new animal passing through the clearing. These were moments that spoke of life, of presence, of a soul that had not been broken by the hardships of the world. Each observation drew her closer, even as fear and doubt whispered warnings in her mind. As the forest darkened, the wind rustling through the leaves, she felt the ache of her solitude more sharply than ever. For so long she had resigned herself to loneliness. She had believed that the past was gone, that family and love were things she would never touch again. And yet here was this human building a home from nothing, showing courage and hope in every careful action, and somehow, without knowing it, he was building a place for her in his world as well. The alien mother stayed by the shadows long after Elias had retreated to his fire for the night. She watched the flickering flames, reflecting on what she had seen and what she hoped to see in the days to come. She realized that watching was not enough. One day she would need to step forward. One day she would have to risk her heart and reach out. But for now she would remain in the shadows, letting herself feel something she had not felt for decades. Hope, and in that hope, a fragile, tender thought took root. Perhaps, just perhaps, she was no longer alone. It was a late afternoon when the storm clouds began to gather over the forest. Elias worked steadily, stacking logs for the cabin wall, the sharp scent of pine filling the air. His hands were raw and sore from the labor, but his eyes shone with quiet determination. Each log he placed seemed to speak of patience, resilience, and hope. The alien mother watched from the shadows as she always had, her heart beating fast. But something inside her shifted that day. She could not stay hidden forever. As Elias lifted a particularly heavy log, it slipped from his grip. For a terrifying second, it rolled toward him, threatening to crush his legs. The alien reacted without thinking. She dashed forward, stronger and faster than he could have imagined, and caught the log in her hands. Her strength pressed it safely back into the earth. Elias froze, staring wide-eyed at the shimmering figure before him. He had never seen a creature like her, not in stories, not in his imagination. I didn't see you, he stammered, his voice trembling, a mixture of fear and awe. I watch, she said softly, her voice melodic yet fragile, carrying a weight of loneliness and longing. I have no one. I am lonely. Elias studied her carefully, noticing the faint silver light that seemed to flow beneath her skin, the gentle rise and fall of her chest, and the way her eyes reflected both the storm above and some deeper unspoken sorrow. He did not recoil. He did not raise his hand in defense. Instead, he offered a faint, tired smile. I am building a home, he said quietly, his voice steady despite the shock. There is space for anyone willing to stay. The alien mother felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She had been alone for so long that even the thought of being allowed to belong somewhere again made her tremble. She hesitated, unsure if trust could be earned this quickly, but the kindness in his eyes was a quiet invitation she could not resist. For hours, they simply stood in the clearing, the wind picking up around them, leaves rustling like whispered encouragements. Elias returned to his work, and this time she stayed near, helping him lift logs and arrange them carefully. She had never worked alongside a human before. The simplicity and determination in his movements made her heart ache with a mixture of admiration and something more tender. She felt a connection forming, fragile but undeniable, a thread weaving between their lives. As night fell, they built a fire together. Elias added logs and struck a flint to spark flames, while she marveled at the dance of light on his features. The alien mother had always thought fire was only a tool, a means to warmth and cooking. But now she felt it as something more, an emblem of life, comfort, and the possibility of family. They sat across from each other in silence, letting the fire speak where words could not. The air between them was filled with unspoken questions and fragile hope. She wondered if she could truly belong with someone so different from her own kind. He wondered if this strange, luminous being could ever trust him enough to stay. Yet the quiet presence of the fire, the forest around them, and the shared labor of the day created a gentle intimacy. For the first time in decades, she allowed herself to imagine what life might be like if she did not have to be alone. When Elias finally broke the silence, he spoke with a soft conviction. Everyone needs a place to belong, he said. A home is more than wood and stone. It's who you share it with. You could stay if you want. Her eyes filled with tears, a mix of gratitude and disbelief. She nodded slowly, her heart trembling. It was a small step, a simple acceptance, but to her it felt monumental. For the first time in years, she felt the faint stirrings of hope and the fragile possibility of family. And as the storm began to break with rain falling lightly over the forest, the alien mother realized she was no longer just a watcher. She had crossed the threshold. She had reached out, and the human had welcomed her, not with fear, but with quiet acceptance. That night, as the fire crackled and the wind sang through the trees, both of them felt it. The first delicate bond of something neither had expected, but both secretly longed for, the possibility of belonging. The following days passed in quiet rhythm. Elias rose with the sun, and the alien mother rose with him, no longer hidden. She had taken her first small steps toward trust, and in doing so she discovered the strange, comforting joy of companionship. The forest around them felt different now. Colors were brighter, the air warmer, as if her presence beside him had somehow shifted the world itself. They worked together, side by side. Elias showed her how to choose the straightest logs, how to carve notches that would fit perfectly, and how to lift heavy timber without straining the body. She, in turn, shared knowledge of the forest, how to spot edible roots, how to track small animals, how to find fresh water hidden beneath moss and stone. He listened carefully, eyes wide with curiosity, amazed at her knowledge. and she felt a quiet pride at seeing him learn, at feeling useful and needed. Their laughter began to fill the clearing. At first it was hesitant, soft, like the rustling of leaves in a gentle breeze, but soon it became bolder, warmer. The alien mother found herself laughing at things she hadn't found funny in decades. The way Elias's hat slipped over his eyes while he chopped logs, the clumsy way he balanced on uneven ground, the way he hummed a strange tune while hammering. These small joys, simple and human, touched her in ways she did not fully understand. Yet, trust was not easy. She caught herself recoiling sometimes, pulling back when he reached out to help, afraid of letting herself be too close. Her loneliness had taught her to be careful, to hide the heart she had left exposed. Elias noticed this hesitation but never pressured her. He only offered a gentle smile, a kind word, a patient presence. Slowly, she learned that trust could be built, not forced, that a heart could open at its own pace when met with patience. One morning, as the sun filtered through the trees, she helped him raise the walls of the cabin. Together, they lifted a heavy log into place. He strained slightly, and she stepped closer, resting her hands alongside his, sharing the weight. Their eyes met, and in that gaze, a silent understanding passed between them. No words were needed. For the first time in decades, she felt safe. For the first time, she felt the quiet thrill of being seen, truly seen, and accepted. The nights brought new experiences. They would sit by the fire, sharing stories of their pasts, carefully picking what to reveal. Elias spoke of his childhood in a distant, bustling world, of hardships and small victories, of the longing for peace that had brought him to this forest. She shared memories of her mate, of the joy they had known, and of the emptiness that followed his loss. In the telling, their loneliness seemed to shrink, replaced by the warmth of connection. As the weeks passed, their bond grew stronger. The alien mother began to anticipate his needs, offering tools before he asked, preparing meals from forest plants, and tending small tasks that made his work easier. Elias, in turn, began to notice her moods, responding with subtle gestures, hand on her shoulder, a shared smile, an unspoken word of encouragement. They became a team, not through words alone, but through actions, through the quiet rhythms of shared labor and trust. One evening, after a day of hard work, they sat on a fallen log, looking at the half-built cabin. Elias touched her hand lightly. "You make this place feel alive," he said. "Not just the logs or the fire, you." Her heart leapt at the words, and for the first time, she did not shy away. She leaned slightly closer, her silver-blue skin glowing softly in the firelight. She had begun to understand something she had long forgotten, that trust and love were not things to fear, but gifts to nurture. And as the stars appeared above, glittering like tiny fires in the sky, she felt a fragile but undeniable hope bloom inside her. For the first time in decades, she no longer felt the crushing weight of solitude. She had found a companion, a protector, and perhaps, in time, something even more profound. In the quiet of that forest, under the soft glow of fire and stars, a lonely widow began to feel a heart stirring again, and the human beside her had unknowingly built the foundation not just for a cabin, but for a family. One log, one act of trust at a time. The sky had darkened by mid-afternoon, clouds thick and heavy with the promise of rain. Elias worked steadily, stacking the final logs for the cabin walls, unaware of the growing tension in the air. The alien mother watched from nearby, a knot of worry tightening in her chest. She had survived countless storms in her life, but something about this one felt different, fiercer, more relentless. She sensed danger not just in the wind or rain, but in the fragility of the home they had built together. The first drops fell as Elias adjusted a heavy beam. They were gentle at first, cold and soft, like tiny crystal beads. Then the wind shifted, howling through the trees, bending the branches violently. Rain poured in sheets, soaking the ground and making the logs slippery and treacherous. Elias froze for a moment, assessing the risk, but he refused to abandon his work. The cabin was nearly complete, and he could not let it fail now. The alien mother stepped forward without hesitation. She placed her hands on the heaviest log he was struggling with, and together they lifted it into place. Her strength was alien and undeniable, and yet she moved with care, ensuring that no harm came to him. Elias looked at her, startled at the sudden closeness, but found reassurance in her calm, steady presence. As the storm raged on, the forest seemed to come alive with danger. Trees swayed violently, and branches broke, crashing to the ground with loud cracks. Water pooled around their feet, and the wind threatened to topple the half-built cabin. Yet Elias and the alien mother worked in perfect unison. She guided him, offered strength where he lacked it, and he followed her lead, trusting her instincts implicitly. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the roar of the storm and their heavy breathing. At one point, a massive branch snapped and fell toward the cabin. Elias tried to move, but the alien mother was faster. She shoved him out of the way, taking the impact herself. Pain shot through her arm, but she held firm, ensuring that the cabin and the human she had grown to care for remained safe. Elias's heart pounded as he reached for her, panic and concern rising in his chest. "You're hurt!" he exclaimed, his voice barely audible over the storm. "I am fine," she said through gritted teeth, trying to mask the pain. "Focus on the cabin." But Elias refused to focus only on the logs. He tore a strip of cloth from his shirt and wrapped it around her arm, his hands trembling with fear and determination. She met his gaze, and for the first time, she allowed herself to be vulnerable. The storm raged around them, but in that small shared moment, something powerful passed between them. A bond forged in trust, courage, and care. By nightfall, the storm had passed, leaving the forest soaked and silent except for the gentle drip of water from the leaves. The cabin, battered but standing, was a testament to their combined effort. They sat together on the ground, exhausted and shivering, leaning against the sturdy walls they had built log by log. Elias looked at her, eyes filled with awe and gratitude. "You saved me," he said softly. "And you saved me too," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. Not from the storm, but from loneliness. For the first time in decades, the alien mother allowed herself to cry. Not tears of sorrow, but tears of relief, gratitude, and something deeper she had thought impossible. Hope. They had faced the storm together, and it had not broken them. Instead, it had strengthened the fragile bond between them. As the stars began to peek through the clearing sky, Elias and the alien mother sat side by side, holding hands for warmth. They had survived the storm, not just with skill but with trust, courage, and the first whispers of love. The forest around them seemed to sigh, as if acknowledging their triumph. And in that quiet, wet night, both of them understood something vital. No matter what dangers the world might bring, together they could endure, protect, and build, not just a cabin, but a life filled with care, hope, and the beginnings of family. Spring had arrived, and the forest was alive with new colors and sounds. The trees were lush and green, flowers bloomed in quiet clusters, and the air was filled with the songs of birds returning from distant lands. The cabin, now complete, stood proudly in a small clearing. Its walls were sturdy, its roof solid, and the smoke curling from its chimney signaled warmth and life. Elias had built it log by log, with hands that bled and muscles that ached, and the alien mother had been by his side through it all. Together, they had created more than a shelter. They had created a home. The alien mother moved closer now, no longer content to remain in the shadows. She spent her days beside Elias, helping him tend the small garden he had planted, carrying water from the stream, and learning the rhythms of human life. She was amazed at how he found joy in the simplest things: a fresh egg from a hidden bird's nest, the first sprout in the garden, the way sunlight danced through the leaves. Each day, she felt the quiet warmth of belonging seep into her heart, softening the loneliness that had clung to her for decades. Elias, too, felt the change. He had known solitude in his own way, a longing for peace that had led him to the forest. But with her presence, he felt a deeper kind of comfort, a sense of completeness he had never experienced. He noticed her in small, tender moments, the way her eyes lit up when she discovered a new plant, the careful way she handled each tool, the soft hum she made when she was content. There was a grace in her movements, a beauty in her being, and he found himself drawn to it in ways he could not yet name. They began to share more than work. At night they would sit by the fire, eating simple meals, telling stories of their pasts. Elias spoke of bustling cities and crowded streets, of struggles and triumphs, of friends he had lost and memories he cherished. She spoke of distant stars, of her mate and the life they had shared, of the silence that followed his disappearance. Sometimes their stories overlapped in quiet understanding. Both had known loss, both had known loneliness, and both were learning how to trust again. Over time, small gestures became moments of intimacy. She would brush wet hair from his forehead after a long day of labor. He would place a protective hand on her shoulder when a sudden noise startled her. They laughed together, worked together, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, they began to depend on each other. The alien mother realized that she no longer feared being alone. Instead, she felt the thrill of connection, the kind that made the heart beat faster and the soul feel lighter. One evening, as the sun dipped low and bathed the forest in gold, Elias and the alien mother sat on a fallen log overlooking their cabin and garden. He reached for her hand, his fingers brushing hers gently. "You make this place feel alive," he said softly. "Not just the logs or the fire. You!" Her heart skipped a beat, and for the first time she did not pull away. She leaned slightly closer, letting the warmth of his hand flow through her. "And you've given me a reason to belong," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. I had forgotten what that felt like. The night wrapped around them like a soft blanket, and for the first time in decades the alien mother felt completely at peace. She was no longer just a watcher, no longer just a lonely widow. She had found companionship, trust, and the possibility of love. She had discovered that life could be shared, that home was not just a structure, but the presence of another heart beating alongside her own. In the quiet of the forest, under the stars and the gentle glow of their fire, they sat together, hands intertwined. The alien mother knew something vital. Life was no longer a solitary struggle. With Elias beside her, she had hope, warmth, and the beginnings of family. And in that hope, her heart expanded, filling with a light she had thought lost forever. From that night on, the cabin was no longer just wood and stone. It was a place of laughter, trust, and care, a home where a lonely widow and a determined human found each other, and in doing so, built something stronger than any storm could destroy. Years passed, and the forest changed with them. Seasons came and went, each leaving its mark on the cabin and the clearing around it. Trees grew taller, flowers bloomed in brighter colors, and the small garden Elias had planted flourished into a patchwork of life. But the most remarkable change was not in the forest. It was in the lives of Elias and the alien mother. Together they had built more than a home. They had built a family. The alien mother watched her children play in the sunlit clearing, laughter spilling over the gentle slopes of moss and grass. They were a mix of human determination and alien grace, a living testament to the bond she and Elias had nurtured. Her heart swelled with pride and joy. Each smile, each giggle, each small achievement reminded her of the long road they had traveled, from loneliness to connection, from despair to hope. Elias bent down to lift one of the smaller children, swinging them lightly in his arms. The child shrieked with delight, and the alien mother laughed, the sound like soft music drifting through the trees. She had not known she could feel this kind of happiness again, this kind of deep, unshakable contentment, the years of solitude, the decades of loss. They all seemed like shadows now, fading in the bright light of the life they had created together. Evenings were their favorite time. They would gather around the fire, Elias tending the flames while she prepared simple meals from garden vegetables and forest finds. The children would sit nearby listening to stories of distant lands, of courage, of love, and of survival. The alien mother told them stories of the stars, of the worlds she had known before, and Elias told stories of humanity, of resilience and hope. Together they wove a tapestry of culture and memory, passing down lessons and love that would shape the next generation. Sometimes, when the children slept and the forest was quiet, she would lean against Elias, her head resting on his shoulder. "We've built something beautiful," she whispered. "More than I ever dreamed was possible." Elias kissed her forehead softly. "We built it together," he replied. "Log by log, day by day, heart by heart. This is what family feels like." She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his hand and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat fill her. In him, she had found a companion, a protector, and a love that surpassed the loneliness of centuries. In her, he had found strength, wisdom, and the courage to care in ways he had never imagined. Together, they had created something eternal. The forest around them seemed to acknowledge it too. Birds nested closer to the cabin, deer grazed at the edges of the clearing, and the trees whispered in the evening wind, as if celebrating the life within their midst. This home, this family, was alive, not just with beings, but with hope, love, and resilience. The alien mother looked at Elias, her silver-blue skin glowing softly in the firelight. "You gave me a home," she said simply. "And more than that, you gave me a family. And you gave me everything I didn't know I needed," he replied. "Strength, joy, love." They watched their children play, their laughter echoing through the forest, and the alien mother felt a profound sense of peace. The years of longing, the ache of solitude, the grief of loss, it was all behind her. In this clearing, in this cabin, with Elias and their children, she had found the warmth and belonging she had dreamed of for decades. And in that moment, she understood something deeply human and deeply alien at once. Home is not just walls or logs, not just safety or food. Home is love. Home is trust. Home is the courage to open your heart and allow others to step inside. The stars appeared above, shining bright in the clear night sky. Elias held her hand as they sat together, watching their family sleep peacefully. The alien mother smiled, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. In the vast, cold universe, they had carved out a place of light, warmth, and hope. And that, she knew, was the greatest triumph of all. They had survived loneliness. They had survived the storms. And now, together, they would survive everything that life had to offer, because they had each other. And that was enough.